Good evening, everybody. So today we'll discuss about the rationale of pathophysiological approach to prevent and treat corona infection. Now, while studying all these literature, what I realized that whatever inflammation occurs in the body in the form of different chemical mediators and cytokines through the mast cells, eosinophil cells, basophil cells, neutrophils, macrophages, there is one common mediator which is seen is histamine. And look, the tissue which is very rich in the histamine are the skin, gastric and intestinal mucosa, lungs, liver and placenta. These are the mast cells rich cell, while there are non-mast cell histamine also, which is stored in the brain, epidermis, gastric mucosa and different growing regions of the body. So what we'll see that turnover of this mast cell histamine is very slow, while those which are non-mast cells, that is in the brain, epidermis and gastric mucosa and growing regions, is very fast. So you get very strong allergic reactions with the some allergens as an anaphylotoxins, which is very fast within minutes. While those in an inflammation and chronic inflammation, slow release of mast cells, releasing histamine and lead to slow inflammation. Histamine is also present in the blood, most body secretions, in the venoms and the pathological fluids. So here what we see that histamine release has major role in presentation of COVID-19. How I am going to explain now. There are 4 receptors of histamine, H1 to H4. H1 receptors is in the smooth muscles, endothelium, CNS. In the bronchoconstriction, vasodilatation, separation of endothelial cells, itching and pain along with allergic rhinitis and motion sickness, these H1 receptors take a major role. So if you block H1 receptor previous to the presentation, previous to the virus to act, multiply, this all smooth muscles, endothelium and airway is protected. And that's why you don't get any COVID symptoms. You can get prophylactically shield against this COVID virus. Secondly, in H2 receptors, they are in the gastric parietal mucosa as well as the vascular smooth muscles. The impression is H2 blockers. We talk about ranitidine and famotidine. They are usually in the gastric mucosa, but they are also in the vascular smooth muscles. They are in the basophils. They regulate the secretion of acid. They have a role in vasodilatation. Most important thing is they inhibit IgE dependent degranulation of eosinophils, basophils and your mast cell. So combining H1 and H2 blocker, you can take care of your COVID patients. I am repeating, combining H1 and H2 blocker, you can prevent your COVID contact person from progressing to the COVID symptoms. There are H3 receptors which are seen in the CNS cells. You can see these receptors also in the presynaptic junctions and peripheral nervous tissue. They control release of dopamine, GABA, acetylcholine, 5-HT and NE. They have major roles in obesity now. In the field of appetite, these H3 blockers are taking care, and there are a lot of literature coming up. When we talk about pharmacology, we'll discuss that later on in subsequent lectures somehow. H4 receptors, they are expressed in bone marrow and WBC. See, eosinophils, neutrophils and CD4 T cells. Just remember CD4 T cells. The cascade of events occurs through the CD4 T cells. So H4 receptor blocker also has effect on CD4 T cells. Again, as antihistaminics, H1, H2, H3, H4 blocker will have effect on the progression of COVID-19, the immediate mast cell chemostasis. Now, very important thing is before degranulation of eosinophil, mast cells and basophil, before triggering of the effect, if you use this drug, it is going to help. Otherwise, it is not going to help to your patients. Now, endogenous secretion of histamine has a modulating role in a variety of inflammatory and immune response, as I have shown you in earlier slides. Any injury to the tissue, they release histamine, causes localized vasodilatation and leakage of the plasma containing mediators, and acute phase inflammation in the form of proteins complement and CRP and different antibodies. Histamine has an active chemotatic attraction for inflammatory cells like neutrophils, eosinophils, basophils, monocytes, and lymphocytes. And this also inhibits the release of lysosomal contents with several T and B cell lymphocyte functions. So when you give an antihistaminic to these patients, all these are taken care of, which I have discussed earlier slides in detail. Most of these actions are mediated by H2 and H4 receptors. H2 and H4 receptors, I am repeating. Release of peptides from the nerves in response to inflammation is also probably modulated through the action on presynaptic H3 receptors. So all H1, H2, H3, H4 receptors are taking major role in control of inflammation of any disease process, especially COVID-19, you have similar presentations. So there are selected actions of histamine, bronchoconstriction or increased mucous viscosity, and stimulation of vagus nerve leading to presentation with cough and bronchial spasm with excess sputum production. H2 receptors, they also have role in slight bronchodilation and increased mucus secretion. Similarly, increased motility of intestine and secretions through the H1 receptors. Pain and itching also through the H1 receptors. That's why few of our COVID patients, they present with the diarrhea to start with instead of presentation of respiratory symptoms. They have loose motions. So mind you, when you see a patient of loose motions in your OPD, please do not forget COVID-19. Take all dire precautions to preserve all the exposure, prevent all the exposure yourself or your staff from getting COVID infection. This increased motility and secretion through the histamine as well as 5-HT, which is represented, serotonin represented the intestine. So the rationale of preventing corona now is first generation antihistaminics, chlorpheniramine, phenylephrine, or cetirizine fexofenadrine. Now with this, we'll go further to what is the evidence of antihistaminics in the antiviral as an antiviral treatment. I have given you the basic pathophysiology, how the antihistaminics are acting through the different histamine receptors. Now here the body of evidence that this was the paper presented in 2002. Just see 2002, 18 years back. This study shows antiviral antimediator effect of histamines, antihistaminics in common cold. In this study, it is clearly mentioned that treatment was initiated in early stage of illness, and common practice self-medication for colds is to be begin treatment after the symptoms which are well established. So the symptom burden of rhinovirus and non-rhinovirus colds, this particular case, this paper was in these patients of rhinovirus and non-rhinovirus. The greatest symptom burden is within the first 3 days of illness. So attacking symptoms after the cold is, when it is well established, is not an ideal strategy. So better to start initiate treatment when the illness is in the first beginning, and thus to prevent the symptom burden for reaching it to the peak. So whenever you have a patient of COVID-19, you can prevent this by prescribing this drug at the early stage, not when they start symptoms. So all asymptomatic patients or the contact persons, we should prescribe antihistaminics to these patients. There are histamine related drugs, we all know: cromolyn, sodium, nadocromyl, albuterol, All these are mast stabilizers. These are being used for asthma patients earlier. Now we know first and second generation H1 antagonist. We know H2 receptor antagonist, ranitidine and cimetidine. H3 antagonist or agonist and antagonist are being developed now. Second generation antihistaminics, what we are regularly using cetirizine, they inhibit mast cell release of histamine and other mediators of inflammation. And this is not H1 receptor blockade, but may reflect H4 receptor effect. So mind you that it is not only H1, it is H4 receptor effect also. Additional antiallergic symptoms apart from the blockade, some of them also inhibit late phase of allergic reactions by acting on leukotrienes or by acting on anti-platelet activating factor effect. So PAF, that is platelet activating factor, which is responsible for clotting, aggregation of platelets, that is also prevented with the second generation of antihistaminics. Only thing with the cetirizine is drowsiness. Some patients who are earlier having depressions, you have to be very cautious using cetirizine in this patient. Better you can use your fexofenadine in these patients. Now we have talked about antihistaminics, the role of antihistaminics. I think this is clear so far. Now we are talking about how the H2 blockers are placed in the treatment of COVID prevention. There are reports, and this paper presented from China, there is a meta-analysis retrospective cohort study, I'm sorry. Famotidine use is associated with improved clinical outcomes in hospitalized COVID-19 patients. And they found that these patients have relatively less morbidity and mortality, those who were already on famotidine or those who were kept on famotidine. So this H2 block effect was seen, although they have given that we need to further do research on this, and in clinical practice we need more new research on this, but this has definitely come into the picture that H2 blocker has definite role. Now anti-leukotrienes, what I have talked about montelukast in the initial slide of leukotriene, L2, A4, B4, C4, D4 all lead to bronchoconstriction and increased permeability. This montelukast has been used in Zika virus infection. This was the paper published long back, and this paper in 2006 had said that montelukast irreversibly inhibits viral infectivity and induces release of viral genome RNA. So this additional benefit of montelukast acting on the viral genome of RNA also helpful in prevention of COVID. Now very simple paracetamol or COX-2 inhibitors, respiratory syncytial virus and influenza virus has been studied long back in 2012. This was published in 2012, and this says that COX-2 inhibition lead to reduction in the viral replication, suppression of virus-induced cytokine production, no effect of in vivo replication, but decreased pathology of lungs in vivo. So it is very important that COX-2 inhibitors in respiratory syncytial virus, they can have this effect because of inflammation prevention. Similarly, in influenza patient also COX-2 has, although there is no effect on replication, but they have improved survival and reduced pro-inflammatory cytokine levels in the mice with zanamivir, celecoxib and mesalamine. Now this important lung function is improved in these patients of in these mice in the case presentation. So it is very important that looking at COX-2 inhibitors, simple paracetamol can prevent all the mediators along with the glucose, along with the leukotrienes, anti-leukotrienes. Now here is in nutshell what you are finding, that arachidonic acid, mast cell degranulation, eosinophilic granulation because of different stimulus. Here we are talking about the COVID. With the xylitol, you can prevent lipoxygenase to act to secrete leukotrienes, and with the help of leukotriene antagonist, we can prevent different actions of leukotrienes on the different cells: plasma exudation, mucus secretion, bronchoconstriction, eosinophil leukotrienes. So it is very important that H1 blocker, H2 blocker has definite role in prevention of COVID-19. Again, after that, how theophylline has placed in the management of COVID-19 prevention. We all know that initial reports says the Indian tea contains methylxanthines and they prevent corona. I don't know the reality and what I can say, the actual, is it useful or not, since it contains methylxanthines. But later on they denied that no such effect occurs with the theophylline or the methylxanthines. But here is the evidence. This is from the Goodman-Gilman. Theophylline has effect on the inflammatory cells, eosinophils, T lymphocytes, mast cells, and macrophage. And what they do, they reduce the cell number of eosinophils. They reduce the cytokines from T cells, what we have seen earlier, and macrophages. They reduce the chemical mediators from the mast cells. And because of that, smooth muscle of the airway leading to bronchodilation, reduce leak from the endothelial cells, and increasing the strength of the respiratory muscles. So theophylline, what we get, deriphyllin, this theophylline has a major role in preventing all these patients. Those who have got recurrent sinusitis or airway obstruction because of seasonal bronchitis or bronchial asthma or COPD, we do give theophylline in these patients. But our patients who have tendency and family history of all these disease, but at present they do not have this disease, we can safely use theophylline in this patient. Now, considering about this, we'll talk about the steroid role. There are reports from the Spain that these people have used steroids, and these steroids has significant improvement in their patients. That is just because of the anti-inflammatory effect. Might be they have introduced steroids at early stages along with the good amount of antibiotics. What steroid does? Acts on the eosinophils, T lymphocytes, mast cells, macrophages, dendritic cells. They reduce the number of eosinophils and dendritic cells and mast cells. They reduce the cytokine release from the mast cells, T cells, and macrophages. And that's why they integrate, keep the integrity of the epithelial cells, endothelial leakage reduced. They increase beta 2 receptors in the airway. With the help of decreased cytokines, they preserve the integrity or say lumen of airway, and mucus secretion is also reduced with the steroids. That's why it will not cause further damage to the lungs, and the steroid is helpful in some patients. But as a prophylactic, we are not going to use any steroids. Now the question comes of chloroquine. Recently, 6 days back, WHO had suddenly reported that HCQS is of no help. It can cause damage to the heart, and it is dangerous to use HCQS as a prophylactic. So far, so date, we were using HCQS as a prophylactic to our patients. Many of the health professionals, authorities have taken this drug as a prophylactic, and suddenly this Lancet 2020 May has declared that yes, HCQS is dangerous not to use. I do agree it prolongs the QTC interval in patients with HCQS. They did a study. There are few doctors, our Indian origin doctors are also involved in these presentations of study, and they found that these patients who are admitted for COVID on ventilator had started on HCQS, and this HCQS prolonged QTN, they develop ventricular arrhythmias. The incidence was 4.3% as compared to 0.3% of COVID-19 patients on ventilator. Now please tell me, I am using HCQS as a prophylactic. I am not using HCQS as a treatment. So when we are using as a treatment, we are definitely going to get some side effect of the drug presenting upon underlying conditions of the patients. Now we don't know that whether these patients were on gliptins, which also prolongs the QTC. Was they were on macrolides, that also prolongs the QTC. Was there these patients are hypokalemic or hyperkalemic, which also acts on the QTC. So very important thing is underlying conditions we have not known, and since we are the more say exporter of this particular drug, probably I think there is something which is under the, I don't want to discuss about that, but chloroquine has definite effect. And how the body of evidence, 2016 February, this particular paper is presented. Inhibitory effects of chloroquine in both type A and type B influenza virus has been described. The very important thing, so far we were discussing about the coronavirus, they are getting attached to the ACE2 receptor through the glycosylation on the cell. And just see here what chloroquine does. Chloroquine gets attached to this receptor and prevent the glycosylation of SARS coronavirus to the cell. So they do not allow SARS coronavirus to enter into the cell. So this is the most important antiviral effect of chloroquine or HCQS. And important thing is it is not cytotoxic like what different IgA antibodies we are using, TNF alpha we are using, interferons we are using. They are equally cytotoxic. For that matter, our few antibiotics also cytotoxic, but chloroquine do not. So this is very important effect of chloroquine. So my prescription now is cetirizine or fexofenadine along with Montelukast and theophylline with ranitidine or famotidine. This is the must along with the paracetamol, right? About the HCQS and chloroquine, let the report come, let them decide, but simple paracetamol can take the place of HCQS. So I feel simple prescription Montec-LC along with Histac or Rantac along with our paracetamol, which will prevent our contact patients into developing corona positive state. So with that, I think we should stop. If any query, you can mail me on my mail address. You all have the mail address, and I'll be discussing time to time various clinical cases in the clinical scenario on my YouTube channel. If there is any query, please feel free to ask right now. Thank you.